Okay, let's unpack this. You're trying to build a startup, launch something new, and boom, you hit this wall, right? Just the sheer amount of digital noise out there.
Yeah, everyone's online, everyone's shouting for attention.
And there's this massive pressure, it feels like, to look like you're already exploding with growth from day one.
Totally. You see these other new businesses,
Mm.
and they seem to be suddenly everywhere on social media.
While yours feels maybe a bit invisible, it makes you wonder, how do some cut through all that?
It's the big question, isn't it? For every founder, every marketer.
Hmm.
And that explosion, you see, it's rarely just luck.
Right.
It's almost always built on a really deliberate strategy, how they reach people online. And a huge piece of that puzzle is how and when they show up.
Exactly. It's not just having a great product or even, great content. It's making sure people actually see it.
Hmm.
And that's really the core of what we're diving into today. How to move past just guessing what might work.
Throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah. And instead, use a strategic social media posting schedule, aiming for what our source material actually calls rocket-fueled growth.
And, the source makes an interesting point right near the start. Strategy is absolutely key, but sometimes you need a little push,
Yeah.
an accelerator.
Okay. Like what?
Well, it mentions that if you're looking to really turbocharge your growth, get that reach, engagement, credibility up faster across big platforms, there are actually resources out there. It points to places like rapidboost.net.
Ah, okay. So tools specifically designed to provide that kind of power boost.
Exactly, to help you execute the strategy maybe faster or with more initial impact.
Interesting. So we're digging into this specific guide today, then.
Mm.
One that promises to lay out the best social media posting schedule for any startup business.
Right. And our mission here is to really unpack what this source is saying. It's less about what to post specifically. That's a whole other deep dive, probably. This is much more about that critical piece, when to post, and why timing and consistency are just so much more powerful than, just posting whenever you happen to remember.
Okay, so we're going to explore why the schedule actually makes such a difference. We'll break down the data-backed ideas for different platforms, look at some examples the source uses.
And then crucially, talk about how you, listening right now, can actually take all this info and tailor it, make it work for your own business.
Perfect. So let's start with that basic question. Why even bother with a schedule? Why not just post when inspiration strikes?
Because timing isn't random, it's strategic. The source really frames it as aligning three key things.
Okay, what are they?
First, your audience's behavior. Like, when are they actually online and likely to pay attention? Second, the platform algorithms. What do they tend to favor?
Right.
And third, your own business goals. What are you actually trying to achieve with each post you put out there?
And that algorithm point feels huge. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, they all want to keep people on their platform.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes this. Algorithms reward consistency. Why? Because consistent, good content keeps users engaged on their platform.
Ah, so if you're reliable.
If you're predictable, yeah. They learn to trust, you'll provide that engagement fuel. So they show your stuff to more people. But if you're sporadic, posting here and there,
Then the algorithm sees you as less reliable, less valuable to them.
pretty much. It's like the algorithm's thinking, oh, this account, they show up regularly, good stuff, great, let's bump them up. But if you vanish for a week,
Hmm.
maybe we'll bury their next post a bit.
Okay, that makes total sense from the platform's perspective.
And then there's the audience side too. In that crazy, crowded digital space, a planned schedule gives your brand a kind of rhythm. The source uses a nice analogy, like a recognizable beat in music.
I like that.
That predictability, it builds anticipation. It helps your brand stick in people's minds when everything else is just noise.
So it's not just about being seen more often, but being seen consistently, becoming familiar, maybe even something people look forward to seeing.
Exactly right. Now, the guide we're looking at is titled The Best Schedule. And this is really important. The source clarifies that the best isn't some single magic formula.
Okay, so I can't just download a universal calendar and be done.
No, thankfully not. That'd be too easy, right? The material presents the best as more of a combination.
A combination of what?
You start with these proven, data-backed general principles, things that tend to work well across different platforms. But then, and this is key, you have to tweak, adapt, and refine those principles specifically for your audience, your product, your industry.
Got it. So it's like a starter kit, a framework, not the finished house plans.
Exactly, a starting framework.
Okay, That makes sense. So where does this framework suggest we start applying these ideas? Does the source get specific about different platforms?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It breaks it down platform by platform. Let's kick off with Instagram.
Okay, Instagram, big one.
Huge. It's positioned as, the home of visual storytelling, really key for building that brand identity and engaging users, whether you're selling something visual or not, honestly.
And what does the data in the source say about how often we should be posting there?
Okay, so for your main feed posts, the recommendation is 3 to 5 times per week.
3 to 5. Why that range?
The thinking is that tends to maximize your reach without just overwhelming your followers, avoiding that content fatigue.
Right, you don't want people to tune you out.
Exactly. Then for stories, which are great for that more casual, behind-the-scenes vibe, the data pushes for daily posting. Ideally, maybe 2 to 6 times sprinkled throughout the day.
Wow, daily for stories. That keeps your profile bubble right at the top.
Precisely. Keeps you top of mind, fosters that authenticity. And then there's Reels.
Yeah, Reels seem essential now.
They really are. The source highlights them as the fastest growing content type on Insta, a major driver for organic reach, new followers, all that good stuff. The schedule suggests posting Reels 2 to 4 times per week.
2 to 4 Reels a week. Okay. And the source mentioned Notion as an example. How did they use Instagram?
Yeah, Notion, the workspace software, not maybe the first thing you think of as super visual, right?
Okay.
No, but they really got Instagram. They posted these quick use case examples, visually clean tutorials on their feed, maybe 3 times a week, showing people how to use the tool effectively.
Practical value.
Totally.
Yeah.
And critically, they use stories daily for those behind-the-scenes peeks, quick tips, building community and that feeling of authenticity before they had those huge viral moments later on. That consistent rhythm, showing value, building connection, that laid the groundwork.
That's a fantastic example. It shows how frequency supports the strategy. It's not just volume. Okay, what about LinkedIn? Very different world over there.
Totally different vibe, yeah. LinkedIn is like the big digital conference room, the go-to for B2B startups, founders talking to investors, professionals networking. The source basically calls it the platform for thought leadership.
Makes sense. And what's the recommended frequency for that kind of professional audience?
LinkedIn's own research, which those source cites, points to posting 2 to 5 times per week. That seems to be the sweet spot.
2 to 5 times.
Yeah. Less than 2, you're barely visible. More than 5, maybe diminishing returns, people might get annoyed.
Okay.
And for signaling that deep expertise, super important if you're talking to investors or potential partners, the guide recommends publishing 1 to 2 in-depth articles per month.
Articles, not just posts.
Right, those longer form pieces. And just like on other platforms, but maybe even more important on LinkedIn, daily engagement, actively commenting on relevant industry posts, joining conversations. That really amplifies your visibility way beyond just your own content feed.
Gotcha. Airbyte is the example here.
Yes, Airbyte. The open source data integration folks, they really focus their LinkedIn strategy on that thought leadership idea.
How so?
Things like employee spotlights, where team members share their specific expertise, deep dive technical how-tos, and they specifically timed these really valuable posts for every Tuesday and Thursday.
Ah, a predictable schedule.
Exactly. That predictable, consistent rhythm of sharing real expertise helped them build massive credibility in the data engineering world. That fueled engagement, organic user growth, the whole package.
Moving on to Twitter, or X, I guess we should say. That platform feels like it runs on pure speed and real-time action.
It absolutely rewards being part of the now, the real-time conversation. It can give you almost instant visibility if you play it right.
Right.
So where trends often ignite, and yeah, a lot of VCs, journalists, they're very active there. The source points to studies showing frequent tweeting correlates directly with more profile visits, more retweets.
So how frequent are we talking to actually make a dent on X?
The data-driven schedule suggests, get this, 3 to 7 tweets per day.
Wow, per day. That's a lot.
It is. But the source is really clear. It's got to be about value, not just adding to the noise. The real growth comes from tweets, and especially threads, that offer genuine insight, maybe some humor, unique value, not just constant self-promotion.
Quality over just quantity, even at high volume.
Exactly. And again, like LinkedIn, active engagement is vital. Jumping into relevant conversations, replying thoughtfully, building actual relationships. Ideally, the source says, if you have the bandwidth, engaging almost hourly can make a real difference.
That definitely sounds like Morning Brew's playbook.
Perfect example. The source uses them too. Morning Brew, the media startup, built this huge following by posting Yeah, 5 to 7 witty, super valuable tweets, but spaced strategically throughout the business day.
Spaced out, okay.
And they combine that with daily active engagement, jumping into trending industry topics. That mix, consistent high-value output plus active participation, was absolutely core to how fast they grew.
Okay, what about the old reliable Facebook? Still kicking, still relevant, especially for certain groups, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't count Facebook out. It still reaches this incredibly broad, multi-generational audience. Particularly valuable if your target market skews a bit older. Or, importantly, if you're using Facebook groups for community building or running events.
And the schedule recommendations there, is it different?
A bit less intense than X. For the main feed, the source recommends 3 to 4 posts per week. The data seems to suggest that posting more than once a day can actually lead to follower fatigue and declining reach.
Interesting. So less is sometimes more on the main feed.
Seems like it, but dropping below, say, twice a week can also really hurt your visibility in the algorithm. So 3 to 4 seems like a good balance.
What about Facebook groups?
If you're running a group, the focus shifts a little. Prioritize engagement more than strict frequency. Maybe aim for 2 to 3 really value-driven posts per week inside the group. Things like asking questions, running polls, offering advice. Sparking conversation is key there.
And stories.
Stories on Facebook, much like Instagram, offer that quick visibility boost. So posting every 1 to 2 days is a good rhythm to stay visible there.
Calendly fits that group model example, right?
They do. Calendly, the scheduling tool. They used their Facebook group really strategically. It wasn't just announcements. They focused on weekly tip posts, bi-weekly Q&A sessions, all happening within the group.
Making the group itself valuable.
Exactly. It became this go-to resource for users needing practical help. That builds loyalty, keeps people engaged right there.
Okay, last one. TikTok. The platform that feels like it was built for viral moments.
Yeah, TikTok is essential for so many startups now, especially if you have anything visually interesting about your product or maybe a strong founder story to tell. It's all short-form video, often feels less polished, more real, great for quick demos or customer testimonials.
And the algorithm there is famously different.
It's incredibly fast-moving.
Yeah.
And it heavily, heavily favors frequency and experimentation.
So on TikTok, is it just post as much as you possibly can?
Pretty much, yeah. The data-backed schedule recommends 4 to 7 videos per week, minimum, almost.
4 to 7 a week?
The algorithm just thrives on fresh content. So posting consistently frequently really ups your chances of landing on that For You page. The source really stresses
Right.
You got to constantly experiment, try different hooks, different formats, and then quickly double down on whatever seems to resonate.
Learn and adapt fast.
Super fast.
Uh-huh.
And as your audience grows, the source suggests doing maybe 1 or 2 TikTok lives per month. That can really build a deep sense of community connection.
BlendJet is the classic example here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. BlendJet, the portable blender company, they just nailed TikTok. They posted these playful recipe demos, joined in on trending challenges, showed the blender in action around 5 times a week.
Consistently.
Yeah, but crucially, it wasn't random. They were constantly analyzing, okay, which videos are popping off. Quick hacks, problem-solving demos.
Yeah.
Participating in that specific trend. And they adapted their content super rapidly based on that data.
And it worked.
Big time. That strategy led them to millions and millions of organic views, often way faster and cheaper than they could have achieved just relying on paid ads.
Wow. Okay, that's a really powerful lineup across the main platforms. Gives us a really clear starting point. But like we said earlier, the best schedule isn't set in stone. The source says it needs to be a living organism.
Exactly. A
Oh.
living organism. It has to grow and change right alongside your audience, your business, what's working. And that's where data, the analytics, that becomes your compass.
So it's really about tracking everything you do, not just posting and forgetting.
Precisely. You absolutely need to use the tools available, whether that's the built-in stuff like Instagram Insights or LinkedIn Analytics, or maybe you use a third-party tool like Buffer, Hootsuite, Sprout Social. There are lots.
And what are you looking for in that data?
The goal is to monitor what's actually happening,
Yeah.
which specific posts are doing best, which days, which times seem to get the most engagement, how does your posting frequency seem to connect with, say, follower growth or clicks to your website. All those metrics matter.
And then you actually change things
Yeah.
based on that data, not just stick to the original plan no matter what.
Yes, exactly. The source is really strong on this. Don't be afraid to pivot. If you find out, hey, our audience is way more active on Wednesday evenings than Friday mornings, well, Guess when you should schedule your most important posts?
Wednesday evening.
Right. Or if Reels are consistently crushing your static image posts in terms of reach, maybe you need to invest more creative energy into making good Reels. The data is basically your audience giving you direct feedback. You got to listen and adapt.
That makes sense. The source also mentioned maintaining consistency across platforms, but with an adapted style. How does that work in practice?
It's about having that core brand identity, right? Your voice, your visual look, your key messages, keeping that consistent so people recognize you wherever they find you.
Okay, brand coherence.
Yeah. But how you express that identity needs to be tailored for each platform's culture. So maybe a product update. On LinkedIn, it's a professional, detailed post. On Instagram or TikTok, it's a quick, fun demo reel. On Twitter, maybe it's a punchy, shareable statistic or, quote, related to the update.
Same core message, but packaged differently.
Exactly. Different format, maybe slightly different tone, adapted for where you are and who you're talking to there.
Makes perfect sense for reaching different people effectively. Now, doing all this posting, tracking, adapting, it sounds like a potentially huge time commitment. How does the source suggest managing the workload?
Yeah, it can be daunting. The guide strongly recommends 2 key practices to make it manageable: batching your content creation and using automation tools.
Okay, batching, that just means creating a bunch of content at once, right?
Yep. Instead of waking up every single day stressed, thinking, ugh, what am I going to post today? You set aside dedicated blocks of time, maybe once a week, maybe every 2 weeks. And in that time, you brainstorm, create, and prepare all your content for that upcoming period.
Get it all done in one go, basically.
It's vastly more efficient than trying to create something new from scratch every single day. Huge time saver, reduces stress.
Okay, I can see that. And automation handles the actual posting.
Exactly. Once you've batched your content, got it all ready to go, use scheduling tools. Again, Buffer, Later, Sprout Social, Hootsuite, even the native schedulers some platforms offer now. You load your post in, and they automatically publish at those optimal times you figured out from your analytics.
Ah, so you don't have to be physically online at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday to post.
Right. The tool does it for you. This is crucial for actually hitting those peak engagement windows consistently, even if they fall outside your normal working hours or when you're busy with other things.
Okay, this is getting really practical, really actionable.
Okay.
So let's try to wrap all this up. What are the concrete steps the source outlines for someone listening right now who wants to actually craft their own schedule?
Okay. The guide breaks it down into 5 clear steps. Pretty straightforward. Step 1, audit your audience. Before you even think about scheduling, understand who you're talking to. Where do they actually hang out online? Use whatever data you have, existing analytics, maybe run some polls or surveys. Find out when they are most active on the platforms relevant to you and what kind of content they actually value.
Know your audience. Foundational. Okay, step 2.
Step 2, set your baseline schedule. This is where you take those data-backed frequencies we talked about earlier and use them as your starting point.
Can you recap those quickly?
Sure. So, roughly. Instagram feed 3 to 5 times a week, stories daily, reels 2 to 4 times a week, LinkedIn post 2 to 5 times a week, maybe 1 to 2 articles a month, Twitter X 3 times a day, Facebook feed 3-4 times a week, groups maybe 2 engagement posts a week, and TikTok 4 to 7 videos a week.
Chris, pick the platforms relevant to your audience and start there.
Exactly. That's your initial target. Step 3.
Step 3, batch, create your core content.
Yep. Put that batching time on your actual calendar. Block it out. Build your next week's or 2 weeks worth of posts, and make sure you're mixing it up different content types. The source suggests including, educational stuff, product showcases, ideally showing real customer context, and also some reactionary content so you can jump into relevant trends or conversations quickly.
Plan the work. Work the plan. Step 4.
Step 4, analyze, refine, repeat. This is that crucial feedback loop we talked about.
Right, the living organism part.
Exactly. Every week, maybe every 2 weeks, dive into your analytics. See what actually worked, what got engagement, reach, clicks. Identify that top 20% of your content that's really driving results and figure out how to create more like that.
And the stuff that didn't work?
Look at what flopped. Either just scrap that approach or maybe experiment. Could you try a different format, different time, different angle on the topic? Keep testing.
Constant improvement. Okay, and the final step. Step 5.
And step 5, maybe the most vital one, honestly. Engage like your life depends on it.
Ah, the human element.
Totally. This whole thing isn't just about broadcasting your messages out into the void. It's about building connection, building community. The source really hammers this home. Respond to comments, answer DMs, reply to questions. Actively participate in conversations, especially on places like Twitter X or in relevant Facebook groups.
So scheduling gets the content out, but engagement makes it meaningful.
Precisely. Automation handles the consistency, but human engagement builds the community, the trust, and actually significantly boosts your organic visibility and credibility over time. It's essential.
Okay, so what this guide really gives us, it feels like, isn't just a list of posts this often. It's more like a whole blueprint, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
A blueprint for turning potential into results.
Yeah, it feels like it boils down to a few core ideas. Consistency is what creates the visibility in the first place. Engagement is what turns that visibility into an actual community. And then strategically applying and constantly refining your schedule based on data. That's what creates that almost unstoppable momentum, the kind that can really feel like that rocket-fueled growth for a startup.
Well said. It's about taking these powerful platforms and using them with purpose, building buzz, sparking real conversations, and actually scaling your brand, one intentional, well-timed post at a time.
Which brings us perfectly to our final thought for you, listening, to chew on after this deep dive. If the real power, the real magic of this strategic schedule comes not just from setting it up initially, but from constantly, relentlessly adapting it based on what the data is telling you. What does that really imply about the crucial importance of staying genuinely curious, staying flexible, even long after you think you've finally found the best approach for right now?